Imagine the people who stormed the White House or the Capitol on J6 were black people. Them niggas wouldn't have made it to the fucking street. Them niggas wouldn't have made it down the street. They ass wouldn't have made it down the street, gang. And it would have been bodies. It wouldn't have been a couple people got beat up. It would have been dozens dead. Okay, before anybody even reached any Capitol, White House, whatever. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying, brother. That's all I'm saying. What's up, everybody? Justin Gray here, aka J Aces, and we back with another episode of The Big Picture, where we talk truth, culture, and community. This is an Aces Perspective episode. Let's jump right into it. Man, so recently it been feeling like black people, the black community in general, has been taking L's. When it comes to getting justice. You see, recently we have the Cyrus Carmack situation. Follows that. Right after that, we have the Carmelo Anthony situation, which, whether you agree with the actions that were taken that day or not, the sentencing is just absolutely egregious. And then number 3, you have most recently, unfortunately, another very unfortunate situation, Nolan Wells. And so all of these situations have sparked some debate in some of my group chat amongst my friends. One of them being white privilege, right? And so I have a friend. This is my black friends, by the way. This isn't my white friends who had these feelings. And these were the 2 things he said. First, racism is dead. I'm reading this right from my phone too. And then 2, amongst the back and forth of our conversation, he also makes the statement, I just don't think white privilege exists anymore. So, whoa, I'm like, man, these are heavy. So, of course, we had some back and forth conversation on that. And I thought, man, what better conversation, given the times, given everything that's going on, to like bring this white privilege topic to Ace's perspective. I think I want this again to be a safe place for us to have these conversations, right? Have differing opinions as well. You don't have to agree with me, right? But I want to hear what you think. You know what I'm saying? So make sure you drop in the comments, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you think. But of course, this conversation got me wanting to react to this video I found online called Exploring White Privilege. So this is a college class. So I'm interested to see what this professor is teaching on exploring white privilege. So let's get into it. Let's see what they're talking about.
So we're going to talk about exploring white privilege today. We're going to need 6 volunteers. I need 3 people who have a strong perspective about white privilege. Like, have a perspective. You got a critique on it. If someone asks you about it, you can be like, oh yeah, no, I can talk about white privilege. I got this. Probably give it another week. You probably will be. All right, so here's what I want. Monet, Dalton, Allaire.
What are you on?
I want you to explain this guy his white privilege.
He was an engineer.
Oh, yeah, hang on. Did you get that? Oh, all right. Do you want to start?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to ask. So
Hold it, Mike, really
did
tight.
both of your parents go to college?
No, neither of them did.
Neither of them went to college, and he became an engineer?
Yes.
How do you say that?
One of his best friends started a company, and he's good with math.
So was there like a connection, like a friend?
Yeah, they used to like race together. Cars.
Go ahead.
Any other questions?
So your job is to explain his white privilege. He doesn't know white. He doesn't get. He doesn't get his. Dude, look at this guy. He's like a frat. What do you call it? Who are they? He's like just a frat dude.
I suck.
Come on, man.
All right, Sean.
All he thinks about is beer and beer. You know what I mean? I would say women, but whatever. But just beer. He hasn't even got to women yet. It's just beer. Bro. So you're gonna explain white privilege to this guy?
Yeah. All right.
This guy. Have you ever? Do you look in the mirror and think about your white privilege?
Interesting. White to white.
Not usually, no.
Okay. I mean, in other words, do you bro? So you're gonna explain white privilege to this guy?
Yeah. All right.
This guy. Have you ever? Do you look in the mirror and think about your white privilege, bro?
Not usually, no.
Okay. I mean, in other words, never.
Which, oddly enough, I think is a privilege of being white. Like, you don't have to think about your skin color much, right?
All right. So the way I look at it is it's probably a combination of like 2 things, right? So the first thing is, if you were to just like let's say like before you were born, right? It was like you're going to be either born white or black, and then you were randomly selected into like one white or black family. Most people, if their goal was to be born into the best opportunity, you would choose white because there's more white people in better opportunities.
What? If I had the opportunity to choose being white or black in a new life, I'm gonna be black again. What is you talking about?
are black people in good opportunities, and not only in this country, but like in the whole world. So like all black people and all white people, right? And then another thing is depending on which country you're in, like, America, like, I don't know, like, I'm white, right? And I have some black friends that say being black never held them back about nothing. And then I have some black friends that say like their whole life is different because they have all these opportunities that they couldn't get to because they're black. So I don't know about that, but that's another perspective, which is that, just like same thing kind of like with being like a man, right?
I'm curious to hear those black kids who felt like they couldn't get somewhere because they were black.
To express or to tell you about your privilege, I think we should talk about your parents. The fact that both of them seem like they're financially stable, and your father became an engineer off the fact of having a friend that he raced cars with. That's amazing. That shows that if an African American was in that same situation, the likelihood of that would not be even existent.
I would disagree with that. I disagree with that because, again, that's more of a circumstance. That's more of a socioeconomic situation than anything, right? Who's to say if the roles reversed and those were just black people, that if his dad homie started a company, that his dad wouldn't hire him? You know what I'm saying? Like, especially if we talking the privileges that are afforded to white people, like that to me is a privilege afforded to someone in an economic situation who are in a class of people that do things like that.
Also, you're in a frat, so that means you have time to, drink beer and hang out with your friends and do stuff like that. On the other hand, a lot of students that have to pay for school, go through school, X, Y, and Z don't have that luxury. So right there, you have the luxury of being in a frat, having parents that are able to provide for you.
I feel like
So she ended that with, you have white privilege because, you're able to be in school, you're in a frat, your parents will provide for you. That is not what white privilege is. And I think why the term white privilege can be so misleading out there in the wild, because you have people who are misusing the term. For example, I come from a 2-parent household. I went to college and I was in a fraternity, right? So like, if you just put those 3 things that she just said down on a sheet of paper, me and him next to him, like the average white privilege naysayer would be like, so where's the privilege in that, right? Because technically there is no privilege in that. That's more of a socioeconomic issue, a class issue, right? An access, a resource issue, which of course white privilege can play a role again there. This topic is so interesting because you don't get capitalism without racism, right? Like it's hard to separate the two because one doesn't come without the other. You don't get a successful capitalistic society without the race ideology in America, right? You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you realize, like, without those two things happening, like, the founding fathers don't get to comfortably write the Constitution, right? Because white and black people together are storming the castle, nigga, ready to burn shit down, right? And the powers that be would have fallen and somebody else would have took over. Like, this probably would have been a British country. We would be having a different conversation, right? But race was created so that capitalism could survive. That's a whole nother topic. But like, remember that in the grand scheme of all this. But understand, I say all that to say, everything she just brought up is a socioeconomic issue and not one of that has anything to do with necessarily white privilege.
You yourself, you're not the privilege. The privilege is in society, and that's just because America was built on white privilege. So it's you see, it's enrooted.
Like, you see what I mean? Like, she basically just said what I just said, but she just misused the term. America was built on white privilege. Like, yes, to an extent, but like, again, America, again, you don't get a USA without racism, right? And so essentially what she's trying to say is, like, the foundation of America is race. You know what I'm saying? The foundation of America is not white privilege. The foundation of America is race. Like, you don't get this great country, unfortunately, without some horrific actions taken by several.
Like, it's not even, it's subconscious. So when an employer, like, let's say your mom walks into like a job, you said she's office management, something like that. Yeah. So let's say when she walks in there, she'd have the same tone, and then like someone of another look or aspects have the same tone, and the employer subconsciously is just gonna gravitate more towards her, maybe because the other person comes off aggressive, but they're doing the same exact thing. And like he just said, if someone of like another race were to say something like, what she just said, yeah, or something like what I just said in the same exact tone, it would be subconsciously interpreted another way. So that's why, like, the privilege comes into the way society, like, automatically views a certain groups. Like, one group is automatically subconsciously viewed as aggressive, while the other seems like, oh, you know, this is more suited for the workplace. Different things like.
I agree with that statement. Like that, what she was explaining is more of what white privilege is. I probably understand this very uniquely as someone who is a light-skinned person in society. Like, I have light-skinned privileges, right? People see me and naturally peg me to be more innocent, more easy to approach, right? I've seen this in real time versus maybe some of my more darker skinned friends, right? How people may not be comfortable around them, how people may assume things of them just because of their darker complexion, right? And so, yeah, absolutely what she's saying has a lot more to do with what I feel like white privilege is in society versus your ability to go to school or your ability to like just be successful out in the world. And of course, there is a level deeper where white privilege does mean that you have the ability to go to a better school, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a deeper topic. Like, I'm just trying to keep it surface level right now.
Like that. So it's not just like you and your family itself, it's American. I feel like in order for us to fix like that part of America, which, you know, was made in like the 1800s and slavery and Jim Crow and all that, I feel like we have to acknowledge like that it's a thing and that's like we have to circumvent it that way.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks, Mom. Dude, tell us about your white privilege here. They're laying it out to you. What do you have to say?
What I'm getting.
I can't wait till your frat brothers are watching this.
They still are right now. I don't. They're kind of making it seem that I was born into it, and that us as whites have a better opportunity because of the subconscious mind.
No, just you. Just like
me?
You have a better opportunity.
Yeah, just me. Sure.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Yeah. No.
Or you don't see it?
Again, like, I think we're conflating like the access and resources that class give you versus the access and resources that race could give you, right? And of course, they're so closely connected because, again, you don't get capitalism without the race ideology in America to be so successful, right? And so they're very difficult to separate. But in certain instances, especially when we're talking about individuals like they are right now, because the professor is trying to get them to prove how this person sitting right in this chair has privilege over them, right? And that's one, easy to explain if we're all talking about privilege from the same lens. So remember, we got the definition of privilege, and remember, so far, if we quickly go back to the definition, a special advantage, right, or immunity granted to a particular person or a group while excluding others. Now, in 2026, it's hard to argue that Black people are excluded from college as they're having this conversation from a college campus, right? It's hard to say that Black people are excluded from, making money and becoming rich in America because technically anybody can do that. Are there some things in place that do make that difficult for Black people? Sure. You might run into it, you might not. You know what I'm saying? Do these unconscious biases that they're talking about possibly get you in a situation that maybe a white person wouldn't be in? Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? The young lady was actually saying something like, one of the last things she was basically saying, like, these things are harder to see. And I absolutely agree, right? Especially if you're a white person and you're never experiencing these things. How can you say something exists that you've never seen or had to experience or even had to think about, right?
Yeah, sure. I don't see it. Let's go with that.
All right. So, okay, that's cool. Got it. So this is, mind you,
which makes sense.
How could you see it? What we're dealing with, right? It's like we got to find a way to say it. We're going to come back to you for a second, bro. But in the meantime, we're going to come back to you real fast. Given what you said, it's built into society. So
it is.
You did nice, dude. I don't. So what's your story? You're white, right?
Yeah. So my parents are divorced, and when they got divorced, my mom wasn't working. So it's kind of just been like slowly working up to where we are now. But even then, I would consider us pretty poor. Like, we've never owned a house. We've been running pretty much my entire life. My dad was remarried, and his family like makes more money than us. But with me, and my sister primarily living with my mom, I would consider us pretty poor. But
Okay, so how do you incorporate her into it? Bro, you can join in on this. How do you incorporate that? Because you said it's built into society.
Yeah, it
She
is
must be
built
living. Where'd you grow up, bro?
Well, I grew up in Lehighton. It's like a small town, kind of like pretty far east from here.
Okay.
It's like pretty depressed town.
So how?
And
Okay,
then-
what? Depressed?
Yeah, there's like a lot of like
Do you-
it's actually mostly white, but I mean, there's a lot of people doing drugs. It's like not a good place to grow up, and it was really bad environment. So like that wasn't white privilege, you know what I mean? So like, but I don't really think that has anything to do with white privilege, because like there's black people that are very rich and very famous, and there's white people that are very poor. It doesn't necessarily mean that white privilege doesn't exist.
So this doesn't negate white.
Facts.
Well, how would you? How
No,
do you,
it's just an outlier.
Yep, I got you. How do you incorporate her story into it?
So I think that white privilege talks about how you can access agency, like what can you do. So like say hypothetically, you're saying that you grew up poor, however, you do attend a PWI, and I feel like that in itself gives you a privilege versus somebody who, let's say that was person of color in your situation, mom wasn't working, X, Y, and Z, would they still have the opportunity to attend Penn State? So
Well, the answer, unfortunately, is yes. Like that's just the harsh reality of that situation. Like that, I think anybody. I'm playing devil's advocate here too as I'm listening to this. Like the answer is unfortunately like yes. Like I actually, I guarantee you, there is a kid at Penn State right now who comes from that situation, right? You know. Let's get
Oh,
into
I'm
it.
not necessarily saying, I'm not invalidating anybody's experiences because I feel like it's all valid. But what I'm saying is that white privilege sometimes gives you the freedom to access better opportunities, and it's since solely off because you are white.
Okay, so you caught that, right? You said that really well. Like, you know what I mean?
thank you.
No. You laid that. That's the point that you're going to lay out. It's like it gives you a certain amount of privileges just being white. However, here's the however. Man, you are walking on a razor's edge
I
to say
know.
that like her being white somehow this in this some kind of microwave or whatever like gives. It's a razor's edge.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not saying that. But let's say, like, even as far as like funding, and I'm not saying you in particular, but I'm saying if it comes down, if you present your story and somebody else presents their story, who would get scholarships? Who would get funding? I'm not saying I don't know your financial.
That one's hard to argue. It's like in America today, that's hard to argue. Like that's to me, that's not what white privilege is. Like now she's arguing who's the poorest, right? And like who would get favor if it was a white versus a black person and they were both poor. Like who would get the funding? Like, well, that depends on a host of things. Who's doing the application? Who's reviewing the application, right? That could matter. You know what I'm saying? But again, these are issues of, we're conflating issues of class with race. And then again, in America, those things are like blended so tightly, it's hard to separate them. But like very specifically, as we're getting to talk about individuals as they are in this video, like prove that this person has privilege over you, you have to go back to the microaggressions. You have to go back to the unconscious bias of just living as a black person in America. And there's a million examples of things, but I'll give y'all one shortly, actually. With a little
financial
story
background.
time.
I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that if you take a black person and a white person on equal playing fields, you go up in a poor neighborhood, drug infested, so on and so on, who has the better chances of making it out? And that's where white privilege
Whoever has
plays
a
a role.
stronger community.
So I'm not saying like, oh,
Around
well,
them.
white privilege, you're going to get to do.
Like the simple answer to that is whoever has a stronger community around them. Like whether you have two parents or not, like is there somebody in your corner that's getting on your ass constantly about getting up out of the situation you're in? Whoever has the stronger foundation and the stronger outlook on where you need to go in life and what you need to do to get there, that's who's going to make it. And that's going to have a lot less to do with the color of your skin than you know, anything. You know,
do all this and all that. I'm not saying that, but if me and you are on an equal playing field, come from the same background, socioeconomics, then will we still have access to the same things? Probably not.
Okay.
That's not true. You probably would, actually. Just keep it a buck. If y'all are both rich, you would probably have access to the same shit. If you're both poor, you probably have access to the same shit.
Hang on. Will we still have access to the same things, right?
Right.
So what do you think about that? What do you think about your white privilege?
I definitely do think that even though I am on, I guess, the lower class level, I still think that white privilege exists. Like, I agree with your statement. And it's like, I don't want to say it's not something that we can help, but it's just how people look at things today. And,
Wait, can you give me an example, though? Because hang on, that's you know a script. That's one of the scripts that your generation has learned. It's like, yeah, I know I have this isn't bad. Like, you're good. Like, you're a good white person, right? Yeah. You learn the script. I know I have a certain amount of privilege. Man, you could be living on the streets, eating rats for dinner, eating whatever, and you could still be like, oh no, but I got the script, but I still have privilege because I'm white. It's like, hang on a sec. To go back, give me one way in which you have white privilege. Your whiteness gives you privilege.
oh my God. I mean, I haven't had a situation, at least in my life yet, where that has come into play, where I've been against someone who's not white, and it was like I needed a different opportunity. But like, for example, like job opportunities, I'm sure that more in the future would probably be presented to someone who is white rather than someone who's of color. I don't know what we were talking about, financial aid and stuff, like scholarships and stuff, being able to go to Penn State. I don't know. I mean, I really haven't been put into a position yet in my life where that has happened.
But can I say to you all and to everybody else, as far as I know, Penn State has no scholarships dedicated for poor white people. I don't think there's a single one out there.
Yeah, right now, I can't receive.
That's likely not true. I'm sure their state has like Illinois has a Pell Grant. Like, I don't have access to a Pell Grant because my parents made too much money, but I'm sure she would have access to the equivalent in Pennsylvania. So there are definitely, it may not be specifically for poor whites, but there are scholarships for poor kids, which is a privilege to have access to as a poor person. Let's go back to the definition of privilege, because we all think a privilege is a good thing. It may not be a good thing. All it means is it gives you a special advantage, right, immunity granted to a particular person or group while excluding others. A Pell Grant is exclusively held for people who live below the federal poverty line, which would make that what? A special right to the Pell Grant given only to people who live below the federal poverty line, which means it is excluding others, meaning middle class and upper class people will be excluded from the Pell Grant. So therefore, you as a poor person have the privilege of access to this type of money. You see what I mean? The differences between conflating the privileges of class versus the privileges of race, right? Poor privilege, rich privilege, firstborn privilege, male privilege. These are all privileges, right?
Receive more financial aid this semester, so I have like a $2,000 bill that I gotta figure out how to pay in like the next 2 weeks, which sucks. But yeah, I mean.
Okay, so hang on real fast. We're gonna come back. How long would it take you to pay her $2,000 bill? She's Puerto Rican.
I wouldn't have to worry about that. But so in my opinion, like, white privilege is a real thing, and I really do think white people have an advantage.
Shout out to all these kids for still not even really understanding what white privilege is, but acknowledging its existence. Yo, racism and like white privilege, everything involving race in this country is very much so. And I really wish I could remember the YouTuber, podcaster, commentator who came up with this concept. But they said racism is like dark matter in this country, right? Scientists would never go into space and like try to measure something without considering dark matter. Even though you can't see it, you can't measure it, you can't smell it, right? You don't know it's there, but they're not doing any calculations in space without considering dark matter. Race down here is like a scientist conducting an experiment, but without the dark matter. Like trying to solve issues in the world, in America, in the country, but not considering the fact that racism exists. So shout out to all of them for like at least still sitting here and saying like, I don't really understand it, but I know it's something that exists.
Over minorities. However, there also is a big divide between the rich and poor, and I think that's a whole separate issue.
Thank you. He's harping on class issues this whole time, not really ones that have really anything to do with race in particular.
Okay, go ahead.
And yeah, so I feel like you're less privileged than me because, well, like, I don't have money, but my parents have money and it's nice. So I don't have to worry about certain things that you have to.
Like
rich privilege, right? This is the privileges of having money in the United States.
So like how much money? I don't want specifics, but like a lot of money. Your parents are really rich.
I mean,
they're wealthy.
Like, yeah.
Like you could call them right now and say, I need $2,000 because I got to give it to my classmate.
Well, no, they make me work for things. That
I got you. But you could, if you needed $2,000, you could get it.
Hypothetically speaking, I could have easily done the same thing. Shout out to my mom and dad. If I call my mom, I was like, Mom, I'm in a fucking rut. I need 2 bands. She would have $2,000 for me. Like, again, middle class family probably has middle class to upper middle class family probably has 2,000 sitting around somewhere to be able to give. Maybe not a bunch of times, but once. Come on, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, dude, just trying to hook you up, my friend. All right. Look, how do the three of you make? She's Puerto Rican, so Puerto Rican. So you have, like, in the United States, you have Native Americans, right? Then you have Black Americans, then you have Puerto Rican Americans, and Mexican Americans, and so on. So, like, how do you incorporate her into the way society is organized, since she clearly has far more privilege and power than her?
But that's looking between the two, you wouldn't be able to tell. And it's all about the optics. And that's how America works.
It's all about the optics?
I agree.
Yeah?
Yeah, like, we don't know their intersectionality yet until they open their
Facts.
mouths. But when we look at you and we make an assumptions, and I'm not saying myself, but how America generalizes, we don't know that you have to pay $2,000. We don't know that your family's wealthy. So, I mean, at the end of the day, how does that work in your favor? At the end of the day, looking at you, you're still white.
What I'm hearing you say, though, and I want you to respond to this, is that she's still better off. In what ways is she better off than her, man? Like, in what ways? Like, I don't see any way in which she's...
From the visual, like, before you get to know them, before they open their mouths, what do you assume?
Yeah, but come on, man. We're gonna... So now what I'm doing is, I'm sitting out here, all right? Bro, I'm sitting next to you, okay? I'm sitting out here, and I'm just the average person who's thinking about this stuff, right? And I'm like, man, you have not made a convincing argument, because her... What's your name again?
Alexandria. But
Alexandria. Alex. I'm just like, come on, man. Your framework doesn't account for the fact that Alex's family is rich and her family. I'm just going to say.
But they're
rich.
two separate issues.
Yeah, we're talking about race and white privilege, and we're talking about the wealth inequality gap.
Boom. I was hoping that at some point one of the students would say, like, you're talking about two different things. You're talking about an issue of class versus an issue of race, right? And I think she just hit that on the head. I'm curious what he responds to that.
Yeah, but white privilege is also about wealth and equality. They're all together. I don't know how you could separate.
Which is also true, right? Like, but he's playing sides here because both statements are true, right? Like, wealth, inequality, race, like, again, those things are baked together. Like, again, you don't get a successful capitalistic society without the race ideology, right? So they're literally baked into each other, and it's been that way this whole time. It never changed. And so technically he has a point as well.
I'm not talking about. Are we talking about? Well, she won't get followed around in a store by security.
Yes, that is an example of white privilege. Like, she's not gonna fucking, like, in this country, white people probably fucking steal all the time without anybody breathing down their neck because they're a poor white person, right? But they probably will get away with stealing before a black person. You know what I'm saying? Because of the optics. Cyrus Carmack, Day was on his ass before he put anything in his pocket. You know what I'm saying? They were all ripped. Hey, put your book bag at the front of the door. You know what I'm saying? Then the white lady pulling the Asian lady like the Asian lady was following O-Dog around. You feel me? And Menace to Society, the same thing. You see what I'm saying? That movie was from the 90s. Menace to Society from the 90s, bro. And they depicting the exact same thing that happened in 2025 with Cyrus Carmack, bro. 20 years later in the future. This just goes to show that, like, people's feelings towards us hasn't changed. And that will happen regardless of your status in society, right? You could be a doctor and lawyer. If you walk into a fucking gas station with plain clothes where fucking any person has some type of prejudice or view against you, something bad could happen because of their bias, because of their prejudice, right? Not having to live with the idea of that is what white privilege is. Even if that's the only way that it exists, then that means it exists, right?
Security guard, but you will. It's like, come on, man, so that's how you're defining white privilege. So I would say open it up, because we're throwing this idea.
Always anomalies. Like, sometimes your parents or your great-grandparents got lucky. Like, my grandparents came from Jamaica, started a business, and then they, like, became, like, millionaires, like, in New York. So there's always anomalies, but at the same time, it's going to be it's difficult. So herself, like, if she steps in a place, her employer knows nothing about her background, and these two women come into one job market, and, the employer is someone of like basic, American views are like views that are commonly seen in America. Like one person's more likely to get the job than the other. So it's like
Okay.
in finances, and it's like,
Okay, listen, man. So one thing you just said, so your grandparents became millionaires in New York?
well,
Like a
yeah,
lot of money.
yeah.
Dude, so right there, the moment you say that, you understand, if I'm her, if I'm you, I'm just like, and now I'm in a class and we're going to start throwing words around like race inequality and white privilege and this and that, and I'm you. What do you think she's thinking?
I feel like, she'd probably think, I feel like it's still weird though, because it's still like, that's just one person in my whole entire family that
I got
allowed
ya.
me to be where I am today.
I got
But
ya.
like when
Yeah, yeah. I gotta give I gotta go back to, he is still pushing the inequalities that your class, your economic status are gonna end you in. Let me give you another example of like how I've come to understand what white privilege is in this country. This happened to me in real life. In 2016, I'm in college. I live in between a bar and a gas station. So the alley of my apartment is the alley of this bar and gas station, right? So my alley has heavy foot traffic going from the apartments that are over here to the bars and the gas stations. A lot going on in my alley. So it's a Friday night, maybe even a Thursday night. Big bar days are at my school. So I'm going to throw the trash out. As I'm taking the trash out, I'm coming down the ramp and I see the police coming down the street, down the alley. Right. So I'm like, man, you know me. I see police. I'm like, shit, let me throw my trash away and move around. I throw my trash away. As soon as I close the lid and turn them out, right, it's a white boy right next to me. White dude standing right there. This dude up a whole zip on me, right? This is a ounce of weed, right? It's 2016. This man randomly pulls an ounce of weed out of his pocket, basically shoves it in my face. It's like, yo, you trying to buy this? My first reaction is immediately like, yo, you don't see the police coming down the street? I'm thinking in my head, nigga, they see this, they gonna think I'm selling this shit. That's my first reaction. That's what I'm thinking. Nigga, get the fuck away from me. Like, you tweaking. You know what his response was when I asked him, you don't see the police coming down the street? This man looks me in my eyes and says, police? I'm white. The police? I'm white. I go, what? You white? So not my dad's a manager, not my dad works at the sheriff office. My dad's a cop. Not my dad's a mayor. Not my dad's a high ranking official for the University of Illinois, so he could pull some strings. You know what I'm saying? Not none of these things. But I'm white was his answer to why he felt like he could pull a very illegal amount of weed out of his pocket in front of the police and be okay. Now, I say that to say, I tell that story to say, when you look at the definition of privilege, and it is the special advantage, right, or immunity granted to a particular person or group while excluding others. Now understand, I'm sitting in that same alley as this white kid, thinking this shit could go bad for me if the police see this shit taking place. He's thinking not shit is gonna happen to me if the police see this taking place. And so let's go back to the definition. He felt immune to the police's gaze in that alley. I wasn't doing nothing wrong, and I was nervous. That is white privilege. You feel me? Like, it doesn't always have to do with be able to get a job somewhere or, be able to become whatever, go to school, make money, etc., etc. Like, you can do all those things as a black person, but imagine if the police turned on their lights and that drunk ass white boy threw the weed in my hand. Who you think they gonna believe was trying to sell the weed if he was on some bullshit and was like, this ain't mine, and threw it to me? And the crazy thing is, white privilege doesn't care what the color of those officers are, right? They could be black, Asian, white, Latino. It doesn't really matter. White privilege says black boy, white boy, weed. White kid says it's the black kid. White privilege says it's the black kids. More than likely, despite who the person is. You know what I'm saying? Because of the way this country is, because the way the media conditions you to believe that all black people are, you know, selling drugs and doing all of these other things, right? Like your inherent bias, your inherent prejudice is what could have got me in trouble in that situation where he was doing something illegal and not myself. That's white privilege. You know what I'm saying? Not having to live life experiencing that. Thinking of that, right? And I'm not going to sit here and say all black people are afraid of the police. If you're a black person that's comfortable around police, I bet you live around white people. So hey, you're benefiting from white privilege because your neighborhood isn't filled with police who are fucking, you know, searching and stopping you for no fucking reason, right? Maybe you were afforded that privilege, but again, this shit is all such a dark matter type of conversation, something that's hard to see, hard to, you know, touch, feel, and understand unless you've experienced these things in person. So you have the white boy who says, I don't know how I have white privilege. Then you have me who's been in an experience where a kid straight up says, oh, I'm white, so the police not going to do nothing to me. Like, some people are very aware of the privilege they have and will abuse it. Take, for example, all the Karens who feel like they're going to call the police the first time they see something's wrong because they know people are going to come for a white woman in distress, right? That's just what the fuck it is. Like, and they're going to believe her because she's a white lady saying something happened, right? This is white privilege, not so much everything else we're saying. And I'm not saying it's going to happen every single time or happen often, but come on, bro. Imagine the people who stormed the White House or the Capitol on J6 were black people. Them niggas wouldn't have made it to the fucking street. Them niggas wouldn't have made it down the street. They ass wouldn't have made it down the street, gang. And it would have been bodies. It wouldn't have been a couple people got beat up. It would have been dozens dead, okay, before any fucking body even reached any Capitol, White House, whatever. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying, brother. That's all I'm saying. My final thoughts on white privilege are pretty simple. There are privileges of all kinds. I think one of the most important things to start with is to remember what the definition of privilege is. And when we take a look at the definition of privilege, we can all see that it is simply a special advantage, right, or immunity granted to a particular person or group while excluding others, right? And so what does this mean? This means there are all types of privileges, right? You could have tall privilege, male privilege, firstborn privilege, pretty privilege, right? That's a funny one. How many people you'd have been to the club and seen a girl not be able to get in, one of the girls in the group not be able to get in because the bouncer deems her not as attractive as the rest of them and they trying to make her pay, right? Pretty privilege, right? All different types of privileges exist. But just because a woman can go to a gas station at 3 a.m. in the morning and return home successfully does not mean there's not an advantage to being a male out in the world at 3 a.m. in the morning. You see what I'm saying? Like, sure, you can do some successful, but that doesn't mean that somebody may not have an advantage over you when it comes to doing those things, right? And so that's all privilege is to me. And I wish we could come to a place where people don't, you know, when you put the word white in front of privilege, people don't go, oh, Barack Obama, oh, what about all the poor white people? It's like, I don't think you're thinking about like what the word privilege means, right? It's not necessarily a get out of poor free card, right? There are privileges to being poor. Y'all don't even think about that. Pell Grants. Kids in Illinois, right? If you live below the federal poverty line, you could damn near go to University of Illinois for free now. Tuition is free based on something they just passed recently. Low income housing, Link, Section 8. All of these things are privileges of being poor, right? So I think we have to, like, when we're talking about these things, we have to take our emotions out of it and just kind of look at the facts and like look at, you know, what is. And I think we'll be able to bridge the gap, one conversation at a time. Thank you all for checking out Ace's Perspective today. If you like the conversation, be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and even leave a comment down below, man. I'm really curious to get your thoughts and hear what you all think. But hey, another episode of Ace's Perspective coming out real soon. Y'all be safe. Y'all be smooth. Peace.